Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 97 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the edited life, and not as all as what it seems. Talk about some ways that you can get the most out of your training, most out of your shooting, and really just in life in general. So looking forward to this podcast. So without further ado, here we go. All right, before we get started, I do want to say a quick thanks to Krieger Barrels. Krieger is a proud sponsor of the show and makes fine cut rifled barrels. If you need a barrel and you need it now, you can stop over to KriegerDirect.com. That's KriegerDirect.com, where you can pick out your barrel and have it in as little as 3 to 5 business days. So stop over to KriegerDirect.com. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is also a proud sponsor of the show and maker of world-class chassis. So if you're in the market to upgrade your current rifle or looking to build a custom, stop over and see all the wonderful chassis that MDT has to offer, from their world-class ACC competition chassis right down to the brand new HNT 26 hunting chassis. So stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. All right, so I do want to say a quick thank you to all the emails that we received over the last couple podcasts that we posted, and really just some heartfelt emails. I really appreciate it, and I don't mind sharing personal things in life and in business. These things are just part of who we are and what made us who we are today, and it's always fascinating. So in this podcast, I'm going to talk about the edited life a little bit, and we talk about training and we talk about long-range shooting, but it also ties into other portions of life, whether it's a business or running a business, and family matters, and taking time to go and do all these great things. And, it's not always what it appears to be. So I've had lots of great experiences in life, and one of them was to film, edit, and shoot different videos for some different corporations or different events we would do for vendors. And one of the things that I loved to do was to edit video. So there was an editor for Steven Spielberg, and I forget his name right now, it just escapes me, but he had said to shoot video is absolutely incredible, but to edit is divine, and it's the art of cutting things and removing things. And in life right now, especially with the way that YouTube works and all these platforms that you see people posting up on Facebook, and they really give you a sense of what their life is like in a highlight reel. It's like a football player looking to go on to college, and they make a highlight reel of his last 3 years in the school. Well, if you watch the 5-minute reel, you'd think the guy never dropped a football, escaped every tackle, and is the fastest person on the planet. But it doesn't show, all the misses. It doesn't show all the training. It doesn't show all the things that actually go on that aren't part of that. And so a lot of times you get this misconception in life and in businesses and in, just in family time, that we are always exposed to this edited life of people, like just the highlight reels. And it creates issues, from people, that fear of missing out type stuff. But it also gives the misconception that people are just either naturally that good at something, or that they don't miss, or that they don't train all the sweat and tears and stuff that go on behind the scenes. And I thought this would be a good spot to put this in, because it brings up, we're getting ready to go into our training season, and we've had some of our past instructors come through and talk, and, it's a great time to catch up with people and really enjoy, some friendships. And one of the gentlemen had said to me, he said, hey, you should be out there competing right now. You should be on the firing line, talking to people and just competing. You should be competing. And I said to him, and his name was Mark, I said, Mark, I really appreciate that. And where I'm at in business and life, it's hard to explain to people like Mark the reasons why. And I always look at it like editing life in general. So let me explain this, and hopefully it'll come off making some sense, maybe help you a little bit, right? When I sat down and edit a video, for example, I would take this job where we were going to make a 20-minute or 10-minute video, and we would have 5 hours of film. And we're taking all that down to this 5-minute or 10-minute film that's going to be played at a show or some other event, right? But as I'm cutting these pieces out, it just highlights the things that are important to us, right? And when I look at life in general, when I'm taking on new projects, for example, I look at it like not what can I do more of, but I think it's really important in life is to choose the things you're not going to do or things you're going to edit out of your life. Things that you're going to say, okay, listen, I only got 16 hours today to accomplish a lot of great things, and the clock is ticking on all of us, right? So rather than looking back at my day and saying, hey, where did I waste 20 minutes here, 10 minutes here, I sort of play a highlight reel of what I want my day to look like and the things that I'm going to do, and that's what I do. I do nothing else. And it allows me to super hyper focus to accomplish the things that are important, the highlight reel, without having to go through at the end of the day and find out that everything was washed out with all these retakes and add-ins and all these other things that make life complicated. And so when I was trying to explain to Mark that I really appreciate it, and by the way, I do go out and shoot. So I still love to shoot. I still get out on the firing line. I actually still go and shoot a couple matches a year. But at 50, I know what it takes to train and compete at that level. And I made that decision several years ago because I've done that. So through the 2000s and the teens, I've competed like crazy. I trained and trained and trained. And even before that, getting into law enforcement and all the shooting, even going back into the 80s. But I know what it takes to be at that level. And I have decided that, look, I have X amount of time through the day, and that I don't want to go back and compete or train up to compete again just because you have or you think that there's this obligation that you should. And at this point where we're at in growing our business and all the teaching and everything else, I still want to keep my finger on the pulse, and I still want to go out and enjoy the art of long-range shooting, but it's at a totally different animal when you're training to compete. And so over the years, I've suffered lots of surgeries to my right knee. I have a hard time kneeling. I have a hard time bending it sometimes. And I'm probably one accident away from a huge major operation that will put me down for a really long period of time. So that's not an excuse. I'm really grateful to have my feet underneath me, right? But I also know that coupled down with the time that I'm going to have to pull away from business and from family and from all the other things that I deem really important to me, it's just not worth it just to go back and relive something I've already done. I've accomplished those missions in life. So now that I've talked about that, let's talk about how you can apply that if you want to get into this sport as far as long-range shooting, competitive shooting, and how to do it efficiently. And I apply it to different portions of my life to make sure that I'm focused on it, what's the biggest priority, and keep working it from there. So my priority here is to be on the firing line with each and every class. So I don't hire instructors. So it requires a lot of time for prep work. It requires a lot of time teaching at the schools, and there's a lot of after-hour times involved in it. I don't want to hire somebody to come in and teach from my book. That's not why customers come here. They want to spend time with me. They want me to be able to help them and look at things, and they want the person who started the class to be there at the class, right? And this is where I think some of the other shooting schools really suffer, is the fact that, they started to grow and they started to, get organized as an organization, but the founders who started the classes and the teaching part all of a sudden sort of hire that out like it's not that important. It's just part of our business. Well, to me, it really is a priority, and it is important. I mean, I taught the very first class here nearly 14, 15 years ago, and I have been teaching it long before that. And it's hard to hire somebody to say, here, here's my book. Forget about the, 25, 30 years experience. Just go and teach what I'm telling you to tell them. It doesn't work that way. It's like having a pilot teach another pilot that doesn't have the experience. He's just reading from the book to you and telling you what somebody told him he should say to you, but he doesn't have the experience in the air with that airplane, right? So a priority to me, and one of the reasons why I don't compete at that level, is I know the hours and the time that it takes away from both family, business, work, and all of the other things, that it would start to hurt or sacrifice one or the other, either our business with me not being here, or it would sacrifice the shooting school. I would have to hire out instructors. And believe it or not, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to teach the classes. So when you come to one of our shooting schools here, and if you come to any of our classes here at our facility in Somerset, I'm there. I teach every class. Now I have people who help, and I have runners and people who are going to put up targets and help paint. And if we have a really big class for like a private event, I'll have another guest instructor come in to assist me. But count on it, I am there teaching every single class. So it's part of what makes the class special, is that you're not coming to Wolf Precision to have somebody else teach a class that we started. When you come here, I'll actually be at every class. I'm the guy that's teaching the class, and I get to enjoy spending time with you here, going over everything, whether it's any of the subjects that we're talking about, questions that you might have. It's that experience level that you're coming here for, and I feel it's really important for me to be here for that reason. Now, that said, I don't want to discourage you if you get into long-range shooting, competitive shooting, and I'll tell you how I did it. So I'm reading a lot of stuff online about, how people, the highlight reels, right? And I'm also, reading a lot of online training curriculums, and there's all kinds of ways that you can go out and learn and sort of experience the art of long-range shooting. But one of the common threads or seams is that it's this really long, drawn-out, hard-to-do process that's going to involve your life, make your wife divorce you, lose your job, and probably take up drinking 10 years from now. And I am here to tell you it is not. If you simply edit everything else properly, you can maintain and you can grow as a shooter without having to sacrifice the entire rest of your life, right? So when I was training, and we tell people here at the school this all the time, like, how often did you train? How much did you shoot? What all did you do? And I'll try to go over some of that here over the next couple of podcasts, like what my training schedule looked like, what I focused on, and why I chose some of the equipment while I was training. But really, it was about 2 days a week. I would go out, and honest to God, it was about 20 or 25 minutes of actual range time twice a week, going over a particular drill, going over a particular situation, and it was hyper-focused. So it was getting there nice and relaxed, and we're going to talk about that in another podcast as far as fatigue in shooting and how that can play with you over the course of a couple days of a match as well. But I would make sure that they get there, really bright, really sharp, on my A game, bright and early, nothing else on my mind, and just hyper-focus on that training. So a good 25, maybe 30 minutes tops. You figure half an hour to get to the range and set up, half an hour to get back home. But an hour and a half of my day, a lot of times I could sneak off and do this without really distracting from everybody else. So I have my work obligations, I have my family obligations, and back then a very young daughter. And so getting her on the bus and, getting all of these things sort of organized, what I chose to do that is I would pick and choose the things that I would no longer do or I couldn't do without sacrificing the quality of some other part of my life. And so I edited my life down to what would almost be considered like a highlight reel, and I made sure I did nothing else other than what was going to play that day, right? And so if somebody wanted to call and have an hour and a half conversation, I didn't do it. If somebody stopped over and wanted to sit and talk for an hour and a half, I would have a 2-minute cup of coffee with them. I'd say, look, I am so sorry, but I'm really busy. I've got a lot I got to get done today. Maybe we can schedule this for another time. But I was really careful with that time. So how do I apply that now? Here is, we get shocked customers to call in all the time because I'll pick up the phone and I'll talk with them and answer questions and go over their build spec sheets. And they're like, wow, I'm sort of surprised that almost every other time I call in, you actually pick up the phone. And I'm like, well, that's my job. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. And again, one of those reasons why, I don't really train up to compete at that really hyper big level again because it would pull me away from all these other parts of my business. I am in a different place in my life now going, in my 50s than I was when I was in my 30s and 40s. And so, yes, still love shooting, could probably sneak out once or twice a week and start training, but then you start calculating in all the time traveling to matches the day before the match, all the prep work for the match, coming home from the match tired, needing a day to rest to get back into work again. Those are the things that would eat up too much of my responsibilities here, really starting to encroach on other responsibilities at this point in my life. But I do want to say that if you get out there and you start training, and this is something you're going to focus on, the next couple podcasts, we're going to talk about how you could do it efficiently and effectively if you choose that this is going to be part of your life. If you want to go out and you want to compete, or you want to go out and really get above that A grade, and try to really throw your hat in the ring and be in that top 10%, we're going to try to share with you some information on how you can do it and some tricks and techniques and sort of how I trained back through the 90s and 2000s and some things that I learned over the years that really helped me make the most of my training, make the best of my time at the range, and really every minute that I pulled away from all the other responsibilities in life, there was something that I got in return, which is the biggest thing. So when you look at the highlight reels of like a YouTube video, like when we were filming some of our videos, even years past, because we've done video work more than 2 decades ago, is, I look at it like I was explaining earlier. I don't want my life to look like the 5 hours of video we've got to go through to make the 20-minute video. I don't want my day to look like that with just a little highlight pieces that I can trim out at time to say that I've had a productive day. So I got 8 hours and I've only got, 20-minute video of highlight reel to show for it. I try to make sure that I approach my day in a way that I'm only focused on things that are going to be in the highlight reel, or try to edit out everything else that's going to sort of muddy up the waters and make it difficult to stay focused to get that quality work done and that quantity of work done in a reasonable amount of time and still be healthy and be good and whole in all the other parts of your life. And so when you're approaching your day, probably the best advice I can give you here is, approach it from, already play that film in your head of what your day is going to look like, what you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish, and more importantly, what you're not going to do. I think the biggest mistake some people make is, they refuse to choose the things you're not going to do. And by that, you're letting other people choose for you, or other circumstances choose for you, or other situations choose for you. Hence, the gentleman or one of our old instructors that was asking about me starting to compete again. I have chosen that I am not going to train up to that level anymore, and that the time away at the matches and events at this point in my life really would be too much of a sacrifice to the other parts of my life. And so I have made that choice because I have the choice to choose. And if I didn't make the choice, physically, mentally make a decision, then I would let other people influence and make the choice for me, right? And so I approach everything that way. I try to make sure that my job is to make the decision. I don't let other people make those decisions for me. I don't let other things influence me and persuade me. A lot of times when I get into certain situations, I've already pre-made decisions of what I will or will not do. And it saves me a lot of grief. And I am always honest in the fact that sometimes you have to say no. And I think people respect you more by saying no than saying yes and sacrificing other portions of your life. And so in life and in business and in training, all of these things become important decisions. It's really important that you make the right decision. And then it's really important that you try to be as efficient and effective with your time in all of this as possible. And you can make it work. I made it work through the 90s and 2000s, even while having a small business, as well as working more than 40 hours a week because I had a full-time job and a part-time job and a young family. And so I had the wherewithal and lots of coffee to accomplish all of that. But in my 50s, I have to slow that pace down because now, even though my daughter's graduating college this year, I have responsibilities to my customers here. And so I want to make sure that I'm here for every class. I made a decision that we won't hire a main instructor, that if anything, we will hire somebody to help me. That was a conscious decision. That was something that was important to me and to our business. And same thing goes with the other classes. If you attend any of our classes, I am there. That is a decision that we made. And that is a choice. We could subcontract, or we could have other people, help and take people on these different events. But to me, that's a decision that I made, so I don't have to remake it over and over and over again with every event. When we book an event, everybody knows that if we book it, we put it on the calendar, I am at that event. That's just simply how it is. And then same thing when customers call in. I love to take time and go over your builds and make sure that they're right. And when you come in to build your rifles, if I am available, I will take the time to go through the build process with you. And I think that's a great experience in itself. And so we'll go through the entire build process. We'll build your rifle, get your hands on and teaching you, all the really cool things of building a world-class rifle. We'll get you that rifle built, we'll go eat lunch, and we'll head off to the range. Now, I can't always do that. We have employees that are super sharp and great people and great instructors that will walk you through and help you with your build. And, I try to be there to take everybody to the range. I try to schedule it that way, but we do have other people that are really awesome people that'll take you out and fit you and spend the afternoon with you and get you all squared away. That part I'm okay with, but when it comes to the actual school itself and these big 2 and 3 day events, I am here. And so when you sign up for one of our classes, yes, we just had a small price increase on our rifles. We just had a small price increase on our long-range shooting schools. And a lot of that is because I am the one teaching it, and because I am the one trying to stay hands-on with it all and not trying to hire it out and sacrifice quantity for quality. I always want to make sure that we stay on the side of quality. And I have a little saying, less but better. Anything that we do, we try to make sure that we might not put 300 or 500 students through our school, but the students we put through have a world-class event, have a world-class experience, and we will certainly do a better job. So that's something that we really hold ourselves really highly accountable for, and in every portion of our business as well. So the next couple podcasts, what you can probably try to start watching out for is I'm going to start going over some of the tips and tricks to train up. It is springtime, and you're going to have to schedule this in. And the reason this podcast actually exists, and thanks for sticking around so long, is we have a lot of people that think that when they're training that they have to, that's their whole world, that they have to sacrifice, family and business and their job and everything else. And I'm going to tell you, you don't have to. Now, there's going to be some give and take, and there are some things you're going to have to give up to do it, or you're going to have to be really careful in what you edit out. But there are ways to train and become very efficient, very effective, and I still do to this day. Although I don't train to compete, I still practice and I still go out and I shoot and I train, just like we're going to talk about coming up here in the next couple of episodes. So while we're getting into the spring months and getting ready, we're going to take the time to go over and start setting up and getting ready for the training and the shooting that we're getting ready to do. And so I'm going to try to help you get the most out of every minute that you're going to set off to the side to get out there and get after and get training to get sharp again. The other thing that we have coming online soon is, we've been talking about this book that I've been working on, and it has been going along, but I've decided that I'm not going to actually publish the book, that we're going to work on a video format of it, and we're going to really start leaning on the podcast to almost be the audio version of it. So if you really enjoy this podcast, we really would appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating. If you just take a minute to do that, if you leave a nice comment, if you know somebody that's really into long-range shooting, if you would share it, that helps us out a lot here. But as we go through this year and in the next year, we're going to try to do an audio version of our book called The Extraordinary Guide to Accuracy. Then accompanied with that is we're going to try to do a series of videos to try to help and train and just give all these little pointers that we've learned at over the years. Now, it's not going to be a 600 video long, 35-hour monstrosity of a video, but it's going to be very short, to the point video segments that will get posted up either on YouTube or we'll make them on our actual website that you can sign up for, and you can go in. And whether you're preparing to come to the shooting school here or just need some touch-ups or some pointers and you got some downtime over the winter, you want to watch and learn some great content, The audio portion will be the podcast here. The video portion will be there as well. So we'll sort of put them hand in hand, and we'll title them for the Extraordinary Guide to Accuracy. So you'll be able to pick them out as to, okay, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4. And the same thing goes with the video work. Now, a couple quick updates. We have a field shooting class that we've kicked off in West Virginia. So we're thinking about preparing for the hunt classes that we were running. And we decided that one of the classes that I think would be more important or more useful to the clients that are heading out onto the hunts and heading out into the field would be an actual designated 2-day field shooting class. Now, we may offer a 1-day version of this class as well, but right now I think we're going to offer this one as a 2-day class. We got our first one up on the website. It's for West Virginia. I will be there, of course, but it really gets into the non-traditional shooting positions. And I think in most hunting scenarios, like one of the reasons I love varmint hunting so much was you really had to get a chance to practice all these positions because you never got to shoot everything prone all the time. And so learning how to shoot from a tripod, learning how to shoot properly from your backpack, and then engaging all of these different targets at real-world hunting scenario distances using these less than ideal positions and really getting you and your rifle boosted up in confidence. That actually means a lot. And keep in mind, too, at these classes, you do not have to be suppressed. So when we're off-site, when we're not here at our home range, you can use a braked rifle. And so a lot of your hunting rifles do have brakes, especially for the states where you cannot or legally are not allowed to own one. So if your hunting rifle has a brake on it, you can bring it to West Virginia. You can run it there. Suppressors are not mandatory. So that date is up for June. We're looking forward to having you. Last thing before we finish up the podcast, I do want to say a quick thanks to Trigger Tech. Trigger Tech is also a very proud sponsor of the podcast and makes world-class triggers. That's all we use here in our custom rifles, and it's what we recommend for anyone wanting to upgrade. So if you want a great trigger for your rifle, custom or otherwise, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. All right, so to wrap this podcast up, we got some interviews that will be coming up here very shortly, but I did want to touch base on the Extraordinary Guide to Accuracy and thinking about what we would like to do, and do we want to release a book, which everybody and their brother is releasing a book right now. We do issue a book for a shooting school, but I don't think that's the proper format because eventually I'll do an audio book of this book anyway. And so I thought we'll do an audio book version of it here on the podcast, and then we'll do a video version of it sort of tying hand in hand with either the YouTube, or we'll actually make a page on our website that you can go to view the videos as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. I really appreciate it. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that super means a lot. We're growing as a podcast nationally and internationally, and that is awesome to see. And it's really because of you all listening in, tuning in, and sharing it. So we really appreciate that. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.